What's going on, y'all? Chuck Dunface here. In case you haven't noticed yet, I have a Microtech SOCOM Elite in M390. This is a 2024. Yeah, seen right there, February of 2024. So it's a new construction. It's got that clear coat, raw aluminum finish. I wouldn't say it's apocalyptic. It looks like it's smooth, but then it's got the apocalyptic blade on there too. This is in the drop point configuration, which is I prefer in the SOCOM as opposed to the Tanto. I like Tanto knives, but I don't know if I've ever had a Tanto SOCOM. But in any case, I do prefer, at least in my experience, limited as that may be, since I may have never even had a Tanto SOCOM, I do prefer the drop point. Let me see. Yeah, this one just came in. Got it from a guy on Instagram, Guns Knives Stuff. Go ahead and give him a follow. And yeah, I haven't had one of these in quite a while. It's been a minute. I probably haven't had one of these since 2021, something like that. I've owned a few. I've owned at least one regular. Yeah, this is probably my third. I've owned one SOCOM Elite with the drop point, and that was like a green frame and black blade, two-tone blade, something like that. And I also had the Signature Series SOCOM Elite, and I do prefer the regular as opposed to the Signature Series, because the Signature Series has more of a dagger type of a grind with almost a medial ridge right there, and so it's going to be a stouter grind when you look at it, as opposed to this flat grind right here, which is pretty, I wouldn't call it thin, but the grind goes all the way up there, so it's higher, whereas the Elite looks like it's more designed for piercing and things like that. It's got less of it's got more of an obtuse grind on it and everything else. They do make an auto version of this one as well. I have not handled the auto. The only side opening autos I've handled from Microtech would be the Stitch auto, which I love, and the brachial auto, which I also love. So I probably like that one, but I've only handled the manual. So I don't even know if I call this like a first impressions video. I've definitely never done a video on one of these before, but I've had them before, so I knew what I was getting. It is a liner lock. Truth be told, though, I would consider it more of a tab lock as opposed to a liner lock, because when I think of a liner lock, you know, true to the name, you would have G10 scales or carbon fiber scales, micarta, what have you, and then the liner itself would serve as the lock. This is more of a tab lock, and it's fixed to the aluminum frame with those two screws right there. So I don't know if calling it a liner lock is truly the most accurate thing to call it. It does run on bearings, and as you've probably noticed, if you didn't know already, it is a tip down only configuration. Gasp. It works on this knife. I think the concerns over tip up versus tip down are largely overblown in the knife community. I think it's just it's more popular to carry it tip up now as opposed to tip down. However, I think tip down, well, most of my knives are tip down, and if I get a Spyderco or a Hinderer or something like that, I almost immediately convert it to tip down. However, I don't mind, or sorry, strike that. I almost always convert it to tip up, because Hinderers come tip up, come tip down from the factory. Spydercos come tip down from the factory. Generally speaking, so I always make that change. I do that swap, you know, kind of like a first thing. So I do generally prefer tip down. However, I think overall the concerns over tip up versus tip down, at least in knives that were made in the last 15 to 20 years, is probably overblown. Honestly, I think there's quite a bit of advantage, because when I'm taking it out of my pocket, now maybe when you take out your knives, you really get your hand in your pocket, and you get your thumb all the way in your pocket, and then you're able to pull out your knife like that, and so your hand is ready to deploy the knife. Me, I tend to grab them more like this, so maybe that's a fault of mine. Whereas this, when you take it out of the pocket, it's very natural. It's very natural. So for me, at least, I'll take it out of my pocket. I'll be holding it like this, kind of a pinch grip with two fingers, wrap my hands around, very minor adjustment. Whereas if I'm taking it out of my pocket and I'm pinching it like this, I have to do a whole thing. You know, I have to switch to my hand before I can open it. So maybe that's just an issue that I have. I wouldn't even call it an issue, but maybe that's just a method that I'm using that I could improve upon if I wanted to have less manipulation of the knife in my hands before deploying it when using a tip-up carry. But just kind of something anecdotal that I've noticed. It does have that grip tape insert right there, which is going to be standard on these, made by 3M. Really grippy, super grippy. Just use an adhesive on something like that. A lot of screws, something that you'll notice. A lot of screws on this model. Might be a turnoff for some people. I mean, it doesn't bother me one bit. Got a spot for a lanyard. However, it was actually pointed out on the short that I did on this knife a couple of days ago that the lanyard, if you've got it in your pocket and it's clipped into your pocket, what the hell good is a lanyard going to do? You're not going to be able to access it. But I guess if you were using it on a vest, or if you decided not to use the clip at all and you just had it in your pocket, or using some sort of MOLLE system or something like that, a lanyard may be helpful in that situation. And then it does have a carbide glass breaker as well. So I'm a fan of that. This one is very inobtrusive. It's just a little nubbin at the end there. Never tested one of these out, but I have no doubt it would function as desired. Aluminum frame, very light, 5.4 ounces, I believe. It doesn't even feel like 5.4 ounces, almost 5.5 ounces. It feels even lighter than that. Balance is definitely a little bit more towards the blade. When you're holding it in hand in a natural grip, you can feel the weight more towards the blade as opposed to the handle, which makes sense with it just being aluminum. And not skeletonized aluminum, it's just slabs, with the exception, of course, of what they've milled out for the liner lock or the tab lock right there. Like I said, running on bearings. Never really taken one of these apart. It does have nice smooth operation. Never lubed this or anything like that. This did come to me used. However, it looked like it was never even out of the box. Barely. It even had a sheen of oil on the blade, which I've since cleaned off. The previous owner, Guns Knives Stuff, he said, I think he carried it once or twice, but he never really used it for anything. And it didn't look like it had been used at all. Like I say, the oil, Microtech ships them with oil on the blade, and it was still oil on there. Curious to kind of put some more miles on this and use it a little bit more. I have been carrying it for the past couple days and using it. Nothing major, but I've used it a little bit here. So it's nice to have one of these back in the collection. Haven't had one in a while. Sounds good, feels good in hand. Got a nice action. It does get hung up a little bit. Well, I got to do it right kind of there. That's where your detent hangs on the liner. Once you get past that, it drops pretty freely. I would imagine it would loosen up even a little bit more with some wear. I don't have any additional lube, just whatever came from the factory is on this right now. But yeah, it's running smooth. Feels great to have one of these back in the collection. Listen, if you have subscribed, I certainly do appreciate that. Subscribed to the channel, I certainly do appreciate that. If you're one of those viewers who watches my content regularly, and there are quite a few of you, and you haven't subscribed, thank you in advance for doing so if you're considering doing so. It really does help the channel. It lets YouTube know that people are interested in the content that I'm putting out, and it will help to get my content in your feed more regularly. So I certainly would appreciate that if you could go ahead and hit subscribe, especially if you watch my content regularly but are not subscribed to the channel. I definitely would appreciate that. Let me know in the comments what you think about this one, if you've had any experience. Posted on Instagram yesterday, and I had a lot of interaction on the pocket clip. Because I kind of put that in the caption of my post, saying, the dreaded tip down carry, and a lot of people kind of chimed in. Most of it was just in good humor and joking around and kind of sharing some GIFs and things like that. But some people were saying, no, never, and some people were espousing the benefits of tip down, especially on this model. Let me know what you think. That's going to do it for me, y'all. Appreciate you checking out the video. As always, stay tuned for the next one. Peace out.